land comprised of houses and no through roads, we have an apartment building. This is already out of place. Apartments are common on major roads and collector roads, but very unusual on residential roads and never fully surrounded on all four sides by single-family houses. Tripling the density of this small parcel of land, surrounded by 49 acres of houses, would be a mistake. Rezoning is a serious matter. That is why the public has input, but we only have input now during rezoning. Phase 2 will require a permit and possibly variances, but no public hearing, no rezoning billboard posted on the property to alert residents, and the public would have no say if the Phase 2 were to change to 300 or 350 units instead of 240. Site-specific zoning needs to be applied to restrict the allowable floor space ratio and density to protect the neighborhood in the future. Variances are requested when compliance with the zoning bylaw causes undue hardship. The proponent is requesting a variance to allow the Phase 1 building to be 8.1 meters longer than the maximum allowable size. But there is no hardship here. No one is forcing the proponent to build larger than is allowable. In order to fit into the existing neighborhood, the building size should in fact be below the maximum allowable size, so that it won't appear as imposing, and such setbacks can be increased to provide separation between the single-family homes and the high-density apartments. I'm going to skip my concerns on visitor parking and thank the proponent for addressing them, as I was going to ask for 14 visitor parking spots. This slide shows a roughly 8-meter western setback from Quiver Place and 12-meter northern setback from Hosmore Drive, which is right up against the allowable limits. This shows Phase 2 pushing right up against the allowable limit again, a 4-story building, 7.5 meters from a sidewalk and 11 meters from the road. Let's take a look at the nearest apartment building in our neighborhood. Rosebank Manor is a seniors building, 55 and up, at the corner of Cedar Hill and Mackenzie, where Cedar Hill is 4 lanes wide and Mackenzie is 5 lanes wide. Let's look at the setbacks here. The building isn't even on a residential road, and it's still well set back from both the road and its neighbors. Here's what it looks like from the street. It's not imposing at all. The proposal for Arrow Road would be imposing and out of place, with 3- and 4-story windows and balconies looking straight into bedrooms and kitchen windows less than 20 meters away. The official community plan states that when considering new development within established areas, acknowledging the neighborhood character is important. Building style, size, exterior, etc. Are important factors that affect integration. The goal of the Gordon Local Area Plan is to limit infill housing to respect the neighborhood character, natural environment, and scale of surrounding homes. As you've seen in these last few slides, this proposal does not fit in with the plans or goals of the community or area. Arrow Road will never be a collector or major road. Considerable time and effort has gone into long-term planning and vision documents and consulting the public over the years. I myself have given input in the past few years on the proposed Shelburne Valley Action Plan because I plan to still live here in 30 to 50 years. Long-term planning and vision documents should be respected and followed. The proponent can build smaller or elsewhere. No one's forcing them to build an out-of-place building here. In conclusion, the proposal is asking too much. It asks to build larger than allowable buildings as close as possible to property lines. It is open-ended, and the neighborhood assumes all future risk if economic conditions change or the project fails. I respectfully ask Council to reject this proposal and the proponent to submit a more realistic proposal at a later date. If, however, this application is approved, I ask that the variances on maximum building width should not be approved. Site-specific zoning should restrict it to seniors-only affordable housing with density and FSR restrictions, 15-meter minimum setbacks, maximum 3 stories, west-facing balconies overlooking Quiver Place should be removed, and the proponent should widen Arrow Road from their property all the way to Cedar Hill Road. Thank you.
I have a presentation of David.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Councillors. My name is David Madison. I live at 3995 Belmore Place. I'm pleased to have an opportunity to briefly speak about an aspect of this rezoning application that was not considered by the planning department. I will illustrate the context of RA3 zoning in terms of this proposal. According to the Saanich GIS, there are 46 RA3 zones. This translates into 140 individual addresses. Of these, as shown in my first slide, 80% or 112 addresses are on major roads, that is, a sidewalk on each side. 16% or 22 addresses are on collector roads, a sidewalk on one side, and 4% or 6 addresses are on residential roads, no sidewalk at all. As you know, there is some overlap in road usage, so a major road can turn into a collector road or vice versa, and a residential road, such as in the recent case of Roland Avenue, can become a collector road for the portion on which a RA3 zone property is sited. Yet, of the 6 addresses on residential roads, not one is fully surrounded by single-family homes. I have 4 slides from Google Earth to demonstrate this. The first of these shows 1106 Glenora Place, which is near Quadra being a major road. The back on the right of this property is Playfair Park, and it is surrounded on the other 3 sides by residential properties, but there's good setbacks there. The next illustration shows 3225 Eldon Place, which is right on the corner of Burnside Road East, again a major road. And the next slide shows 1576 and 1596 Earlston Avenue, which are currently zoned RA3, and they're near Shelburne Avenue, which is on the left. They're actually both houses now, but they're within a RA3 zone area. And the last slide here shows 3815 and 3811 Roland Avenue under construction, and it's being marketed today as Uptown Place. So a sidewalk was required of the developer, or the developer volunteered to build one in front of the property and also along Huxley Avenue leading out to Kerry Road. So my conclusion from this is that rezoning 1550 L Road to RA3 will result in a uniquely sited property not only in Gordon Head but all of Saanich. Rezoning to RA3 will also open the redevelopment door for other owners of aging RA1 and RA2 properties in Gordon Head's single-family neighborhoods on residential roads. Thank you for your careful consideration of this rezoning application.
Thank you. Mayor Atwell, members of council. My name is Steve Yarmy. My wife Carol and I have lived at 3956 Oakland Street for over 40 years. We've witnessed all the population growth in this neighborhood since 1974, when Mackenzie Street was 2 lanes. A field across the street from our place was a pond, and the field on the south side of Mackenzie was a pond with ducks in it. Later to be filled in and a huge multiple dwelling apartment occupying the space. Mackenzie eventually was 4-lane to accommodate increased population growth in this area, Gordon Head and UVic. Then a proposal to rezone the property across the street from us to accommodate an L-shaped 4-story apartment building complex or a co-housing unit or a 34-unit townhouse. After much pressure from surrounding residents, the developer and Saanich agreed on the existing 14 townhouse units, which fit in perfectly with the surrounding neighbors. The landowner, developer, and architect were attempting to maximize out the property footprint. Fast forward to the Mount Doug Court Development Permit and Rezoning Application 1550 Arrow Road. I and my wife Carol opposed this development for various reasons. Because the building is 40 years old does not mean its useful life is over. Our house is over 46 years old and will be used for many more years. The height of the building exceeds what is recommended on the west side of the Shelburne corridor. The Gardner's Green 4009 Cedar Hill Road is in sync with what should be on the west side of Shelburne Street, which is 2 stories. Arrow Road is not listed on the pedestrian priority plan. Only consideration would be to increase the traffic. Sidewalk Only the fixed sidewalk would be in front of the property, which will be paid for by the development. Taxpayers would pay for widening Arrow Road to Cedar Hill Road. Sandy spends thousands of dollars on traffic calming. The existing portion of Arrow Road provides traffic calming, preventing shortcut to Mackenzie Street by other travelers. There was reference to bus stops on Mackenzie and Oakland Street. That would be very dangerous for seniors to jaywalk across 4 lanes of traffic. The nearest crosswalk is at Mackenzie and Cedar Hill Road. These are some of the reasons that my wife and I oppose this maximum size that is being sought. And a 2-story unit would suffice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wonder if we can roll in development off the screen, being we're not talking about that tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors, for allowing me to talk tonight. And just quickly, I'll tell you what the slide is that's up there. That shows the Mount Douglas Court property on a rainy day recently, and you can see the water covers a big portion of that property. So I'm Mark Buckland, and I live at 1548 Quiver Place, a house located on a quiet cul-de-sac to the west of the Mount Douglas Court property, which I have owned my house for 38 years. The development of 3- and 4-story buildings is definitely out of character and not a good fit for this neighborhood of low-rise, single-family homes. I am also a member of the Arrow Road Action Committee. As stated previously, we, ARAC, and our neighbors welcome additional affordable housing units for seniors in buildings not greater than 2 stories. But we do have many concerns about the proposed development and its impact on our neighborhood. Drainage, that speaks to it quite clearly. Considerable amounts of water collect on this property each time it rains, and especially during the winter months. For many weeks this year, the accumulated water on this property, especially to the north and east of the existing building, has been out to the fence line. A rain garden is slated to be installed on the west side of the property. And I looked up the definition. It says a rain garden is described as a planted depression or hole that allows rainwater runoff from impervious areas like roofs, driveways, walkways, parking lots, and compacted lawn areas the opportunity to be absorbed. But I note that the rain garden will be located on the highest portion of land and not where the water normally collects. Some of our concerns regarding this water are the impact that it would have on the existing Saanich sewer system to take away surplus water This will be like draining a small lake around 2 to 3 acres in size, many times with each rainfall. We, the neighbors, are very concerned how draining of this water will also impact the Sandage Jewel Bow Park. This is full of native vegetation, including protected Gary oaks. The native vegetation relies on large accumulations of water, and we assume ridding Mount Douglas Court, Bow Park, and the pond properties will ultimately lead to decimation of a lot of the vegetation. Local residents volunteer in this park weekly to remove English ivy, Himalayan blackberries, plus other non-native species. Bow Park and its network of trails is used extensively by residents walking dogs, riding bikes, taking children up to the playground, and of course walking from one neighborhood to another, or just enjoying pleasant strolls through the park. It's indeed a gem. Planting of trees. Looking at the architect's renderings of the Mount Douglas property, it shows trees that are mature and they're designed for privacy. But we all know that these depicted trees in the architect's renderings are likely 10 to 15 years old, so that we ask that trees that are being planted should be mature trees in that same age range to offer privacy from the outset. Pathway. The architect's plans show pathways around the perimeter very close to the property line. How wide will this pathway be? And is it designed for cars and or emergency vehicles? And I know some of that has already been answered. Balconies and privacy. We note that there are no balconies located along the north or the Hawksmoor side of the property, but are still shown to the west on the Quiver side, despite a request to remove them. Now, we trust this is just an oversight and will be remedied. And smoking, we assume that the new buildings will be declared non-smoking. And again, it's been answered, will a dedicated smoking pit be provided? We know there will be one. But at the moment, some residents from Mount Douglas Court do smoke along the existing fence line, and it's not always tobacco. In light of the fact that the pathways bring residents closer to the neighbors' properties, we ask that smoking not be permitted on any of the pathways. It appears that RA2 zoning hasn't been considered. Why not? This would be a step up from RA1, would allow approximately 54 more subsidized low-income seniors housing units to be built, which would benefit the greater community and would fit in well with the neighborhood. RA3 zoning could then be considered in phase 2 with public input at that time, which reduces the risk to the neighborhood with the phased approach. RA2 zoning would be a win-win for everyone involved.
Thank you.
And thank you again, Mayor and councillors, and for coming to tour our neighborhood. Thank you so much.
My name is Lottie Jackson, and I live at 3998 Belnor Place, which is the White House you see on that picture. That's why I asked for it to remain up there. And I want to thank Chairman, Mayor, and Council for all of the time they've spent on this. It was fabulous to see so many of you come up for the tours. That was great. I would like to table 2 questions that have come up. One is, Mr. Daniel has said that they would add 14 or up to 14 visitor parking spots. I'm curious as to where that would come from the allotted numbers of parking, or would they be new? And my second question is that there's a reference to a maintenance area that's going to be in the back by my place and the garbage bins. I'd like to know what exactly a maintenance area is. Then the additional thing I'd like to add is just a comment in reference to the residents of the existing Mount Doug housing court. The ARAC committee didn't consult with them for 2 main reasons, at least from my perspective. One is we heard informally from a number of the residents that they felt quite intimidated and unwilling to to come forward, so we didn't want to put them in an awkward position and ask them to speak or contribute if they didn't feel they comfortable doing so. And secondly, shortly after the ERAC, our committee started collecting names and discussing things with our neighbors. 2 no trespassing signs went up on the Mount Doug Court property, so we didn't feel comfortable crossing that line and accessing those neighbors of ours. Anyway, so I've written a piece that has somewhat changed this evening, so I beg your forgiveness if some of this is a little out of date since earlier today. So by now you've heard many concerns expressed regarding this development proposal. The recent document that was sent out, the report, it was of concern to me in that it almost wholeheartedly endorsed the initial plan. 3 of the most glaring points from my personal perspective were the density, the parking and traffic issues, and the variance requested to increase the width of the building. And in my particular case, I might actually be closer to the Phase 1 development than some of the people who live in the Mount Doug Court building. So all 3 of these issues directly affect my property and the neighborhood as a whole. The Planning Department's report refers to this proposal as being in accordance with the various aspects of Saanach's vision, but it actually refutes some of its own reasoning. For example, the official community plan desires safe pedestrian routes, and then the report outlines the problems with Arrow Road. And even with some improvements that have already been discussed, it does have hilly topography. So a sidewalk isn't going to fix that. And if you're walking with a walker or cane or have mobility issues, that will not be addressed. Also, initially the proposal was for improvements in front of the property, and any way to get to the front of the property requires you take a route that has no sidewalks, even if you divert to Belmore and Hopesmore. Another example of the inconsistency is there's a statement that Saanich values developments in keeping with the current neighborhoods, when in reality, even the addition of just Phase 1 alone more than doubles the current population of the property, especially when one considers that a 1-bedroom apartment could be rented by 1 couple, meaning 2 people. So we could easily be looking at going from approximately 80 people on the property to having over 200 people living on the property with just Phase 1. And a final example I will raise is that the Planning Department's report states that the neighborhood Phase 1 would help the neighborhood to adjust to the negative impacts of Phase 2. So this clearly indicates there are negative impacts. If the proposal actually addressed the issues I've just listed, and those are only a few examples, the proposed number of units in each phase would be less, the need for the variance for the width of the building would be reduced or eliminated, and the incredibly number of visitor parking spots would be addressed. So I'd like to paint a picture for you that the impact of this development would have on my family and my family home. When I first looked at it, I was reminded of the Joni Mitchell song, Big Yellow Taxi. That's the one that goes, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. And a few lines later, the song goes, don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? Well, I'm here today because I do know what I've got, and I need to speak up before they pave my paradise and put up an apartment block and put up a parking lot right behind my house. Firstly, this development would put the parking and the turnaround drive right behind my house and the garbage pickup right near my bedroom window. So given the plan consists of possibly increasing the population there to 140 people, let's imagine having a picnic where you invite 140 people. Think about the regular, everyday noise created by 140 people. Then think about how much coming and going would transpire, including arrival of friends and family coming for visits. And let's face it, considering we all want seniors to be able to age in place, Grocery delivery vehicles would come, healthcare providers, handy dart ambulances would come and go. Additionally, this area needs maintenance, so you've got landscapers coming. Again, back to the picnic analogy, people would need to eat, and so they would produce garbage, compostable and non, and that gets put in the bins located right near my bedroom window, with the resulting pickup by the big, loud, beeping garbage trucks every 1 to 2 days. And since you want people to be able to safely get to their cars and the garbage bins, you have to keep the area well lit each night, all night. So now I've gone from a quaint wooded area to a loud, noisy area. Must add, just in summary, I'm not opposed to the theory of increasing the numbers of seniors living on this property. I'm opposed to considering the current proposal as the best way to do this. I'm opposed to the idea that the developer's one vision of how to explode the population in one section of a very residential neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. And we certainly appreciate those of you, I think all of you, who came round our neighbourhood in sometimes very inclement weather and took risks on Arrow Road. I've got a slide here. I'm a member of the Arrow Road Advisory Action Committee, and it's an ad hoc committee. We represent people who actually live in the area and have to live with the consequences of this development. Many of my friends and neighbours in the area are elderly and infirm and couldn't be here tonight, so I have to represent them, and my fellow members of the ARAC have to represent them. Peter Daniel mentioned earlier that nobody in the complex was opposed to this. He might be interested to know that we have at least one person on our distribution list who self-identified as being opposed to the development in the survey that we've done. You all have copies of the survey, and you'll see we got a very good response rate. I want to concentrate at the moment on some compliance issues, and there are many community and planning objectives to be satisfied when we review this proposal. And so what I've done here is taken an overview of some of Saanach's key planning objectives and looked at the proposal's compliance with them. The first one is a community objective, and that is provide additional accommodation for low-income seniors. We are very much in favour of that. Some of our friends are people who live in the existing building. One of them is a great friend of my dog, and they really adore each other. And so we have no problem with this. We have said all along that we want additional housing, and so I've rated that as a pass. Our concern is that this planning report is heavily biased, and that's been mentioned by other speakers. It seems to be unquestioning, it is suspect in some of its deductions, it ignores several policies, it fails the tenants themselves, and it fails local residents. The reality is we're looking at an enormous 240-unit, high-density, high-rise apartment complex. Furthermore, the proposal fails to comply with several key sets of vision, goal, principles and policies to be found in the official community plan, the Gordon Head local area plan, the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan, and the Development Permanent Area Guidelines. And I will demonstrate where this is the case. The first objective I picked on in those 4 documents in various places, building height and density to transition lower as you move away from the valley core. The reality is the proposal is going to put a large, high-density, multi-storey institutional apartment complex right in the centre of a low-rise, low-density residential neighbourhood of single-family homes. That, to me, is a fail. Second objective, retaining character in established single-family homes. Again, a quote from those documents. To me, the designs are just cookie-cutter copies of similar designs found in the urban core of a city. They are inappropriate to our neighbourhood, they're out of scale, they're out of character, they're architecturally insensitive to the existing streetscape, and they are visually intrusive. Again, I rate it as a fail. Another objective found in those 4 documents, apartment blocks to be sited on arterial and collector roads. The reality again, Arrow Road is neither an arterial nor a collector road. And as some of you well know from having experienced it, it's now a high-speed cut-through running from Cedar Hill Road to Mackenzie. And some of you had to step aside walking down that road when we took you on tours. Again, I rate that as a fail. Objective 4, providing safe and accessible pedestrian environment. Well, you've been down there, you know what it's like. And that imaginary painted sidewalk, to rate it as all those downsides as being traffic calming, is bizarre and irresponsible. Number 5, proximity to public transit, several hundred metres away, another fail. Avoidance of hilly topography, you all know what the end of the Arrow Road looks like. And so what we have here is 1 pass and 6 fails. And I really wonder why Saanich Planning is recommending this to Council. Why is their report so heavily biased in favour of the proponent? And what is the point of having those 4 documents if they're just to be ignored? I think it's time to rethink. And so moving forward, and I probably don't have time to read this to you, we would like the proponent to come back with a better proposal that no more than doubles the number of units, no more than 2 stories, and adheres to all the things that I've mentioned that are in the official community plan, the Gordon Head local area plan, the Shelbourne Valley Action Plan, and the Development Permit Area Guidelines. They're listed there. There's the areas where I believe the proponent has failed us. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Mayor, and Councillors, my name is Barbara Tabata. I live at 4151 Torquay Drive, and I'm here on behalf of the Gordon Head Residents Association. We have considered this in great detail, and we have our official statement that I'm going to present to you. And I know it's in your packages, but people here might not have heard it. Okay. The Gordon Head